The articles are no longer called as articles from S4 version 1809. They are called only as materials, just like the way the materials are being called in the normal ECC processes. So
Mm.
Mara is the main table for the. Do I also have to explain about which table we are accessing and why we are accessing? For example, you must be having an idea about Mara table, right? Or do you want me to explain
Mm.
this also?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Mara. Two important things that we will have to note in every tables in IS retail part is that every single object that you're talking about that you're working upon always comes with a validity period. So when we say that we are creating a store, we will say when the store is going to open and when the store is going to close. And when we say that when an article, whenever I use the terms product, article, or material, I'm referring to the same thing. Okay, all the things, the store, the availability of a material in a specific store, the availability of purchase of a material in a specific purchase organization, the availability of the sales of a specific article or product in a sales organ distribution channel, always comes with the validity in retail. That's the difference between the normal processes and then the retail processes. So what happens is, if you say that, let's take the example of H&M, okay, because that's where I used to work, and that is a very typical example. If you want to buy a blue color shirt in a specific so let's take you're buying the shirt in Sweden. That shirt will be available in Sweden only for a specific season. So it always comes with a validity. Okay,
Mm, mm,
so
mm.
every object in retail always comes with a validity. So let's go back to the process. I quickly wanted to show you that the materials, the articles are no longer called as materials, because it used to be called as articles and now it's called as materials. Now let's take the case. Usually what happens is we buy the materials. The buying part is not the responsibility of IS retail consultant. Okay, the material master, the store master, and then the pricing and promotion part. These are the major activities that IS retail consultant will be doing. So we buy the materials. So materials will be a text. We buy the materials and we sell them in the stores. That's the major activity that can happen in any retail space, right?
Mm.
We buy the materials, we make them available in the stores, make them available in the stores. This is the major activity that we do, right? And when it is being sold in the stores, we set the price and promotion in the stores, and the information should flow back to ECC, right? So both of these are can be in residing in two different entities, or it can also reside in one entity. So there are a lot of setups that are needed to be done for the materials
Mm-hmm.
individually, and it has to be made available for a specific store or sales or distribution chain, as we call in IS retail. And from there on, the sales will happen. So first is making the master data available for a system, making the master data available in the system, and making the materials to be available in stores and in distribution chains. Distribution chains are nothing but sales org and distribution channels. Okay. Usually what happens is, in terms of you will always concentrate about the purchase orgs. But when you are working for IS retail, it is important that you understand the sales org setup and how the sales org and distribution channel combination works. I will also explain you about that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason is IS retail industry or retail industry is always about business to customers, right? Let's
Mm-hmm.
take, I'm not able to think of an example of a manufacturer. Let's take Dell, for example. If Dell is procuring something from, I don't know, the Intel company, they will always be doing the business between the Dell and then the Intel company, right? That's a B2B business to business. There
Yeah.
only business collaborates. But when Dell sells it to the customers, it becomes a B2C organization. So Dell can work as a vendor for Intel normal customers, but when it procures the items from Intel, it becomes a customer for Intel, and it is also a B2B business, not a B2C business. Whenever you talk about the B2C setup in the SAP systems, there always comes the process of selling. And if you want to sell a material or a product to a specific customer, you always will do it as sales orders. Okay, we
Yeah.
will not talk a lot about sales orders here because the way the assortment runs happens is a little different in retail. So we will never deal with the sales orders straight away. That's where the POS system comes into picture. Okay,
Mm.
so you should always understand and see the things in terms of how we are going to sell it. So when we want to sell a material in SAP, it should always be sales order and distribution channel combination. That's one thing.
Mhm.
So making the master data available. When we say master data, we are talking about a lot of master data here. One is the material master data, another one is the store master data, another one is the merchandise category. Merchandise category is very much specific in IS retail, and we also have something called as merchandise hierarchy in IS retail. This is also one of the important concepts. Not everyone uses the hierarchy concept, but it is also important to know that the hierarchy concept is available. And pricing and promotion is also a master data in IS retail. These are the major master data that we will always be dealing with. Store master data, even in the first session, I told that it always comprises the vendor master data as well as the customer master data. So whenever we speak about stores, we are always talking about three different objects. One is the customer, and second is the vendor, and third is the store master process as it is. So these are the basic master data that are available or that we will have to know when we are dealing with the IS retail processes. Now, if I open the content process here, the course content has the article master data, if you see here, because it used to be the term earlier. And we are also having something called as assortments. Assortments is also a very interesting topic, and assortments is the one which determines which material has to be available in which specific store or in which specific distribution chains. And we will look through the different ways of creating the assortments and how the assortments has to be handled.
Mhm.
And do you have any idea about PryCat also? Have you worked in
No,
PryCat by any chance in the past? Okay.
no.
PryCat is nothing but the price catalog item. If you, for example, if you go to Tanishq in India today, they will give you a catalog, right? The catalog will
Yeah.
comprise of the item as well as its corresponding price. For example, if you want to own a retail store in your own place, for example, if you own something called as Sai Retails, and if you plan to sell Nike and Adidas shoes, for example, what you will do is you
Mm.
will look through the catalogs of Nike and Adidas, and you will not buy all of those, right? You will buy, for example, if they have 10,000 models of shoes from Nike, and if they have 10,000 models of shoes from Adidas, you will look through their catalog, you will look through the prices of those specific materials, and then you will order the ones which you are interested in, right? This
Exactly. Yeah.
information of prices, catalogs, and price catalog along with the material information is called as PryCat information. The way that is being that can be handled, or we have a number of ways where we can get interacted with the vendors as well as where we can sell it to the customers. So the basic information is called as a PryCat here. Price catalog together is called as PryCat. So these are the
Mhm.
major master data that are available in SAP IS Retail process. Not, it is not restricted only to this. Okay, sometimes we also have seasons being created as master data, but these are the major ones which we should be aware of. So as IS Retail consultants, what we will have to know is how the materials are getting created, how we are going to create the material, and how the setups and configurations are to be done in the system for the materials is the first part. And where are we
Mhm.
going to sell those materials? Are
Mm.
we going to sell it in stores, or are we going to sell this in distribution centers, or are we going to sell it straight away to the customers? How we are going to sell the materials to the customers, in which place? So that's what the store master data defines about. And when we have to sell the materials or our products in specific store, it should also carry the pricing information, right? It should also, for
Mm.
example, if you're selling a shirt, blue color shirt, let's take for an example, you should also give the information of the size of that shirt, right? For example,
Yeah.
if the size is 42, you should give the information about the size. And you should also give the information about the color of the shirt. You should also give the information about, let's take, you have to give the information whether it is a full hand shirt or if it is a half sleeved shirt. That information also you should give. So what kind of specifications that you're going to give for your material is also something important, and the setup of the material master data plays a very major role, and we will look through all of the configurations for that. So
Yeah.
how you are going to classify your material, and there is also some concept called as variance and classifications, which is super important, and that's where the most of the issues occurs. So we will also go through that when we see the material masters. So we should understand how material master is getting created, or how we are going to do the setups of the material master, where we are going to sell it, and what kind of information that material master should carry when we are selling it in a specific store is something that we will have to understand. And apart from that, what kind of pricing procedure that we are going to set on the material to be sold for a specific sales organ distribution chain. And we also will see about the promotions. For example, if we have the season of Christmas, you will be applying some promotions, meaning that for all the European countries, you will give a 25 percentage of discount for a specific segment of clothes. For example, let's take hooded jackets. Maybe you want to give 25 percentage of for those hooded jackets for that specific season. Those are called as promotions, and there are
Mm.
various types of promotions that are available in the system, and we will also go through that. So this is
Okay.
the basic business process we will have to know. I will also tell you about what list of tables that we will have to be really concentrating on when we are dealing with the different master data. And there is also another important concept called as whiz out, or whiz process. It is called as whiz process or whiz out process. Let me write it as whiz out, because how you are going to send your material to a specific store to be available for the POS end. You are very much used the POS end, right? So how the
Mm.
material is to be sent from SAP to the POS end, and how the POS end system is going to deal with the materials, and what kind of sales is going to happen there, and what is the final calculation of what is being sold in a specific store. End of the day, what has happened at the store, that calculation has to come back to the ERP system, right? That's where your actual calculations are happening. So
Mm.
there are specific setups available, and we will also see about the waste out processes. POS inbound and outbound setup is what I was talking about. In terms of waste out process, I will also that here. And size conversion, we will look through the size conversions when we see the materials part. So from the moment of material being created in the system, from there on to make it available for a specific distribution chain, and from there on to a store, and from there on sending it to the POS end with all the relevant details, and from there on capturing the POS and information back to the ERP system is going to be the entire flow. Okay, this is what
Mm.
we
Mm.
will be covering in most of our any questions until now, Sai?
So the material, we have to create the material, a new material in IS Retail, and
Mm.
that needs to be
Mm.
assigned to the distribution chain or sales, or the store.
Yes, right.
So, like in POS DM,
Mm-hmm.
we assign all the sales to a particular store, right?
Right,
So if there is any sale, I mean, why this sales organ distribution chain is there? Like, I mean, like all the sales are assigned to store, right? And from POS system also, you're getting those transactions which are belong to a particular site or store.
right.
So do we need to maintain anything in POS DM also related to distribution channel and sales organization?
It is not specifically relevant or needed in POS DM. It depends on what kind of POS system you are using. If you're using SAP POS DM system, if we provide the sales org and distribution channel information, it is well and good. Now SAP CAR is being used. Do you know about CAR?
Yeah, I know. I know. I mean, like I did a POC on POS DTA.
Yeah, CAR is the system which aggregates the POS and relevant data into the core system, and it feeds back to the ERP system. So this is how the flow will always be. Let me quickly show. This is our ERP system. Okay,
Mm.
ERP system is connected to both PAS as well as your PAS system. Let's take this as CAR, and this is your CAR system, and this is your PAS system, POS system, and this CAR system is always connected to the POS in system. I will also tell about what different informations we will be dealing with. From ERP, we will be sending the material relevant information, pricing and promotion relevant information, and stock relevant information, and store relevant information to the POS system, because that's what is going to be sold in a specific store, right? This POS system is set in a specific store, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not available in all the places. If you walk
Mm-hmm.
into a store, you will have 4 or 5 POS points. This POS system feeds your information back to your CAR system, stating that this article is sold today, and this article has to be replenished from tomorrow for the sales. So that information will be fed back from CAR system. You know what the reason that SAP has introduced CAR?
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
The reason why SAP has introduced CAR is that the interaction between ERP system and the POS system is not real time. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if the POS information is sent to the CAR system on real time, and it feeds back to the ERP system on real time, the ability of ERP to interact on real time is very, very feeble. It's not possible to achieve in the ERP system, because it is not only dealing with the transactional processes of the stores, it is also handling the logistical processes, the procurement processes, the allocation processes, the replenishment processes, and the financial transactional processes, and many other processes are being handled in the ERP system, whereas CAR concentrates only on the POS processes. So these are all linked together always, so that the POS system always sends its real-time information to the CAR system. CAR system understands the information that is being sent from POS, and then it evaluates and sends only the required information to the ERP system. Okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
why in order to have a real-time ability, the CAR is being introduced. MNS, for example, or Lidl, for example. Lidl is a very good example, right? Where the stock is being sold out every single second, or every single fraction of second. And that information has to be really on real time. At the end of the day, when the system runs the replenishment process, let's take milk for example. There are 10 cans of milk today when the store has opened in the morning, and then at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 8 milk packets are already sold. So this information has to be fed to the ERP system, so that the logistical replenishment process runs, and from there on, the system will know that of Lidl should get 8 more cans of milk packets tomorrow. So that information should be fed on real time. That's why CAR is being introduced. All the transactions that are happening between ERP, CAR, and then in the POS system are real time. And then SAP has provided the standard message types for all the interactions. Okay, they are called as the WPU message types. You must be already knowing that, or I'm not sure what kind of message types that you're dealing with. They are called as
We are
WPU
all
message
dealing with
types.
custom message type. We're not dealing with any standard. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. WPU. I have just given this as terms, but these are called as WPU message types. The interactions that are happening between the POS car and then the ERP message ERP systems. This will tell you the information about what to say, the material, the price, the logistical stock unit information of the material in a specific store. All this information will be fed back to ERP in terms of WPU messages. So this is what happens when we are dealing with the POS in place. And coming back to your question of how distribution chain is being used in here. Let's take Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
Sweden. Lidl in Sweden can have 100 different stores, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a Lidl Sweden has 100 stores, and then let's take Lidl Norway, and Lidl Norway can have 200 stores. I don't know how much it has, but let's take it has 200 stores. And Lidl Finland, and it might have 150 stores. Okay, in all of these stores, Lidl will sell milk packets, yogurt packets, and spinach, for example. And the requirement of all of these and the pricing information that are to be available in all of these stores in Sweden, all of the stores in Norway, and all of the stores in Finland are entirely different, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not really aware of the product names, but let's say Eco is one of the brands of milk. That's a brand that is available only in Sweden, whereas that brand can entirely not be available in Norway and in Finland. In those cases, it is important that we have to specify which material is available for which distribution chain. That's where the distribution chain and then the store assignment comes into picture. So this is where assortment also comes into picture. Assortment, as I said, is also one of the important concepts. We'll look through the processes. So these are called as distribution chains. Every store in your SAP retail system is assigned with a sales org and distribution combination, and that is where the stores can do its operations. For example, if a store is assigned with the distribution chain, a combination of Sweden, let's take some products also. Let's take
One question here.
yeah,
Here
yeah, sure.
here the store site IDs must be different, right? I mean, Little Sweden site ID would be
Yes.
different with
Yeah.
from Little Norway.
Yeah, there are 100
So
stores, right? So there will be 100 different store IDs in the system.
yeah, so the store IDs will be different from Sweden to Norway. So
Right.
we can simply assign this. I mean, there is a unique site ID is there between the two countries. So why we need
It doesn't
another
necessarily
distribution chain out there?
have to be unique between the how will you say that just by looking at the store, how will you say that because in another important information, the store is a 4-digit code in SAP.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just by looking at the store, we wouldn't be able to do the assortment processes without having the distribution chain being specified, because just by the stores we wouldn't be able to do the assortment processes and replenishment processes. Every transactional information that you're carrying out in retail process is based on the distribution chain, because distribution chain is the one which says which sales org and distribution channel combination decides which kind of place that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
For Little Sweden, it might have something like this. For example, let's take the sales org as 1000, maybe 1000, and 10 as the distribution channel information. And for Norway, it might have something like this: 200 and 2000 and 10 as the distribution channel. And for Finland, it probably can have something called as 3000 and 10. This I will also come to the distribution channel process. Distribution chain is the main differentiator between which is being sold in which place. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one more thing that we will have to remember is distribution chain plays a higher role in the organizational check information, and then comes the store. You should always look at the distribution chain as the biggest. Let's take Lidl as a company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is the company, and it has its branches in 3 different countries. Let's take, and it will have a lot of different stores in every country, right? So the country plays the major or topmost organizational information, and then comes the store, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is why distribution chain is very important. So most of the retail companies have their it depends on the structure again. Most of the times, how if it is a global client, and if they are having their outstretched stores in most of the global places, they will always have the country as the highermost structure, because most of the transactions will happen on the country level, and that's where you will be able to define the pricing information and the currency of your transactions. So most of the companies will define the country as the topmost organizational structure. So Lidl as an entity, it has its places in Sweden, Norway, and Finland. Let's take this as the distribution chain information, and they are having always the store sales, and they can have multiple stores under each distribution chain. This is how the organizational structure is defined. That's why distribution chain plays a major role. So if Lidl decides to sell, for example, Indian groundnut, for example, if Lidl decides to sell Indian groundnut in its Finnish stores, what it will do is it will assign the article or the material, the Indian groundnut in the distribution chain Finland. Okay, in that case,
Mm.
what will happen is that that material is applicable for to be sold in all the places, meaning all the stores which are in Finland are eligible for selling the material, the Indian groundnut in all of its stores. So it doesn't little doesn't necessarily have to go to every store and assign that article to be available in that store. If it applies it on the distribution chain level, it also
Mhm.
means that it is readily available to be sold in all of its stores underneath that distribution chain.
So one country can have a single distribution chain or multiple distribution chains are also
Yes,
assigned
that
to
is
you.
also possible. Yeah. Distribution chain is always a combination of sales org and distribution channel. Distribution channel is nothing but how you are going to sell your articles. For example, you can also, Lidl can have online store sales.
Mm-hmm.
It can have store sales, and it can also have third party sales, right? So in by what method it is going to have its sale is called as distribution channel. For now I'm able to think only of these three methods: online, store sales, and then the third party sales. These could be only the possible distribution channels. Again, I'm talking only about the retail aspects now. There could be a few other companies which are dealing with few other distribution channel informations, but on a higher level I'm telling you this information. So the combination of your sales org and distribution channel is what determines the distribution chain. Whatever example that I have told right now, I was assuming that the Lidl has store sales only in these countries. Okay, it can also have online sales, and in that case, we will have one more layer where it says like this.
So multiple distribution channels. Yeah.
Multiple distribution channels. Ah, is
So,
it
so
not?
sales org could be a like one-to-one mapping for country. One country will have one sales org, or it can have multiple sales orgs.
It depends on how organization is being used or set up. That's how it happened in H&M, and I'm pretty sure that is the structure in Lidl as well. Maybe M&S, which is which is based out of UK, they can have different structure, but most of the cases this is how the retail companies design their organization structure in the system.
Country
Yeah,
sales
country.
org,
Sorry,
sales
go
org
ahead,
can be
sir.
one. Country sales org can be single or multiple, and once or to one sales org we can have multiple distribution channels, and to that we assign a store,
Yes.
multiple stores. Yeah.
For example, it is not necessary that we always assign stores to this distribution chain. If you are selling
Hmm.
it online, it is not needed that you have a store, right? In that case, you don't
Exactly.
even
Yeah.
want a store. Yeah. So it depends
Yeah.
on what is it that you're dealing with. The examples that I was talking to you right now were all stores. I'm not sure if you are aware of this company called the PVH, which is the Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein brands.
Yeah, I know
They
those
are
brands,
based
but
out.
PDH I don't know.
Yeah.
Tommy
Yeah,
Hilfiger and
PVH is the
what is it?
company which owns these
Mhm,
brands. Okay, so how do
mhm.
they do their business? Is that they also do something called as omni-channel. They also do something called as store sales. They also do something called as online sales, and they also do something called as third-party sales, and they also do something called as it's a good term. I forgot that name. I will let you know by tomorrow. So they are also dealing a number of ways of how they deal with their sales, but the base setup is how your sales org and distribution channel are being clubbed together, and what is it that is assigned underneath is plays a major role.
Okay.
Yeah, this is how the organization structure will be. We will also go through the organizational part, organizational structure first, and then we will go through the material master processes. That's when you'll be able to understand. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
So when we say that we are going to decide to or when an organization decides to sell something in a specific distribution chain, we are trying to say that that is applicable for all of the underneath organizational structures. It can be stores, or it can also be a distribution center, or it can also be an online sale platform, or it can also be a third party sale platform. It could be anything. So we are trying to say that when something is available on a distribution chain level, it is also available on all the organization structures underneath that.
Okay.
Okay, that's a little about the processes of how things work between ERP and the POS and then the CAR system, as well as the organizational structure here. Okay. um, today we'll see a little bit about the store processes. The reason why I emphasize on store process is that sometimes it becomes a little overwhelming information when we see it at the later stage. So when we are with the fresh mind, we'll see through the store informations. I will first start with the way that it can be seen in the system, and from there on I'll go through the configuration part. So I will first go to transaction WB03. WB010203 are the transactions for create, display, create, change, and display your store details. I'm going to, yeah. Before S4, the stores were always called as stores, and after S4, SAP has decided to stay back with its own old term of plant. So whenever I say plant, store, I'm meaning the same thing. Okay, site, plant,
Mhm.
and store, all of these mean the same thing. This transaction is specific only for IS Retail WB 0102 and 03, and this transaction is not available in any other SAP ECC components
Module.
or S4 components or even
Mm.
normal components. So if I'm not sure if there is a plant already available. Okay, I am opening this store which already is available. So plant is always a 4-digit code. The code can be alphanumeric. Okay. So the moment I open this plant, you will be able to see a customer and okay, the person whoever have created this, they haven't created a vendor here. So the plant is always associated with the customer and vendor object. Vendor is not mandatory, whereas customer is mandatory. Okay.
Mhm.
The reason why customer is mandatory is one more information. When we say store, let's take M&S itself. Wherever we as customers we walk into a store and we buy stuffs, right? In M&S, those are
Mhm.
called as stores. And in that case, where we buy the materials from them or where we buy the products from them, they are our vendors, right? Vendors to the actual customers.
Yeah.
In that
Yeah.
case, yeah, in that case they play the role of vendors. The plant plays the role of vendors. Okay. Whereas
Mm.
when it replenishes the material from the distribution center, from warehouse only, they have to get the materials into the stores, right?
Mhm. Mm.
In the cases where it gives or gets the materials from the warehouse, in that case it plays the role of a customer.
For to warehouse, it's a customer,
Yeah, to
right?
warehouse it
Yeah.
is a customer. Yeah,
Uh,
to
to
us
the
it
end
is
customer,
actually a vendor.
vendor. Yeah.
Yeah. So is this clear now why it has three different roles? And the reason why SAP has designed the plant as a plant structure is that for all the logistical processes, it has to have the structured plant, right?
Mm. Yeah.
You want to keep your storage location and keep your products in a specific plant, and if it has to be placed in a specific place, it has to have the storage location, and if it has to have the all the logistical processes in its place, logistical executions are to be set, then it has to have the plant structure. That's why SAP has designed in such a way that the plant object have three different combinations, which is the plant, customer, and vendor combination. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
We are in WB03 transaction now. The first screen shows us about the purchase org and sales org relevant information for the store. Purchase org is not mandatory, whereas sales org and distribution channel and the company code to which the plant is associated is mandatory. According to the
Mhm.
standard SAP setup, a plant can belong only to one company code, and that's why it is belonging to only one company code. But it is not mandatory that the plant belongs to only one specific distribution chain. It can belong to n number of different distribution chains. It depends on your business again.
Plan to company code is always one to one.
Yes, plant to company
Plant
code
and
is always. Let's take the company code as country, okay? I will also go back
yeah.
to my screen. Yeah, if a store is belonging to one country, it can always belong to one company code, right? Company code is
Yeah.
always the general ledger account. Yep, store can do its operations only in one specific place, which basically means that it is confined to do its business on only one specific transactional or currency code, and that's why it belongs always to a one company code. It has a lot of meaning under why it belongs to only one company code, but on a higher level, it can do its business only in one place, and it is restricted to do its business only in one place, and that's why it belongs to only one company code. So you'll be able to see the organizational relevant information for a specific plant in this place. Valuation and inventory management is another tab which explains you about the valuation area, and grouping code, and inventory management profile also plays a major role. I will also tell you about how why inventory management profile is important. This inventory management profile tells you about how the inventories can be managed in a specific plant. A few organizations deal the inventories on the material group level or a material hierarchy level. A few organizations handle their inventories based on distribution chain level. A few organizations handle their inventories based on the materials level, but there could also be exceptions possible. But on an overall level, it is always the 001 transaction that is being used. So that is very important. And sales or retail price is always this is again a config. I will show you to you in the configurations. So look through the informations that we are having in valuation inventory management, and these are not really much important to begin with, but when you look and work through the deeper concepts of how the stores are being handled specific to organizations, it is important to understand these concepts. So this is the tab for valuation and inventory management. And listing and materials planning, how the listing happens. Listing is also another important concept. I will also add that. I was telling you about the assortments, right? I should also add listing. Both listing and assortment means the same thing, in almost means the same thing, but there is a very small or minute difference between the listing and then the assortment process. I will explain you that. But how this listing process is going to happen is explained in here. Listing procedure is the major difference, and we will also see this listing procedure when we talk about the assortment processes. So if you see here, there are many different listing procedures that are available in the system, and out of which how we are going to list the materials to a specific store is determined by this key. Okay, listing without classification. Most of the times people use organizations use a listing without classification because they don't really want to look through whether a material is relevant for a specific distribution chain or not when they do it for the stores level. It again depends
Sorry,
on what kind of setup. Sorry.
sorry. Can you? I'm lost. Can you repeat what it is? Subsequent
Uh,
this listing.
yeah.
I'm not getting it.
So what was I saying was the listing procedure determines how your materials are being sold in a specific store. Okay. Or
Mm-hmm.
how the materials are being made available in a specific store. There are multiple levels of checks that happens in the system before a material can be made available in a specific store. System cannot just like that go ahead and assign a material in a specific store without doing a lot of checks. So it does a lot of checks.
Mm-hmm.
What are the checks or procedures that it has to do before a material being assigned to a store is what this option talks about.
Okay.
So this
So
is listing procedure. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
and this has to be, we have to configure somewhere in the configuration this listing profile, and then we need to assign it here and
Yeah,
create it.
it is mostly available, configured. All the options that you're seeing right now are already standardly available. If you want very much anything specific for it, you'll have to go for your customization. Otherwise, the standard listing procedures are already available in the system.
Okay.
Yeah, we will also look through this listing procedure setup when we see about the assortments.
Mm-hmm.
And subsequent listing possible or not, this is also one important factor, and this also we will see when we are talking about the assortments. There are only three possible options available for subsequent listing. One is no subsequent listing, error is being processed, and next is allowing the subsequent listing. Third is the manual decision. This determines whether a material which is already available for the specific store can be listed one more time even the period is over, or if it will be ended in only one assignment or not, is being determined by this subsequent listing process. We will also look through this when we are talking about the assortments. Underneath this, we also have something called as listed articles and assigned assortments. So in this tab, we will be able to see what list of materials are listed to this specific plant. If I click on this, these are the list of materials that are available and assigned to this specific plant in the system. Okay, you will be able to see that. But MARC is the transaction. MARC is the transaction where we will be able to see the assigned materials specific to a plant. So whatever list that you are able to see here, we will also be able to see in MARC.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I will also start listing out the tables that you will have to be concentrating upon. So it will be a little easier for you. You should understand how these tables are getting populated. That is the prime important factor. You know about Mara table, and MARC table is also important. MARD. T001W is the table where you will be able to see the store relevant information. Okay, whatever configuration that we are making here for the stores, the configured information we will be able to see in T001W table.
Yeah.
Okay, there is also there is also a transaction called as WSPK. We will come to that later. For now, we will just see through this. These are the important tables. As and when we look through the concepts, we will also look through the tables. And LFA1, LFB1, and LFM1 are for
Vendor
vendor
master.
master data,
Mm-hmm.
and KNA1. The reason why am I writing is that we also see plant in these tables are also important. Okay, I'm going to the purchasing and distribution chain. So in here, we usually don't maintain a lot of information. If there is any specific supply region specific for a store, that will be maintained here, and how the supply happens. It usually is regular supplies, and other details we don't really give a lot of importance. Source list we do not care about here in retail. It works in a little different way when compared to the normal process. So we don't really have to concentrate on the source list. But honestly, I have never worked in this tab itself. All that we do is first time configuration for the reference store, and from there on, don't care about this. POS is an important factor here. If you have any specific POS inbound profile setup and POS currency, then we will have to maintain. In fact, POS currency is mandatory for a specific store. You will have to say in this setup on which currency the transaction has to happen. So this is the place where it defines which currency can be accepted in a specific store. So this is important that you maintain this information here. Also, the POS inbound profile information here and the currency setup information here plays a major role when you will set up the out processes between the stores, POS and system. So it is important
Mm-hmm.
to have these two information in here. And layout on blocks. This talks mostly about how the store layout is being. For example, what is the area of your store, and how the space is being defined in the system. I also have not used this at all in my experience, so this is not very much important. And coming to these tabs are something that we usually will not give a lot of importance in SAP, but in here it plays a major role, because this is where we'll be able to see different details about the stores. Here we have seen only about the organizational information, right? We did not see a lot of information about what is the address of the store. For example, address of the store is important because, for example, whenever we open our apps, if you want to look through a MNS store near you, what you do is you just say that MNS store near me, correct, right? That's how we
Yeah.
do the Google search. So it is important that we maintain the address very precisely in the system. So it so the details will be seen precisely in the apps. So plays a major important role. And opening time, as I said, everything is time bound, or everything is availability time bound in IS Retail. So if you open a store, you have to specify when is it open, what time is it open, and when it closes. It is not mandatory though, but it is important to give the opening date and closing date. For example, MNS, if MNS decides to close a store, they will have to update this closing date so that the assortment information doesn't get updated often. Okay. So it is important
Mm-hmm.
to give the information about when the store is open and when, from which date to which date it is open. All those information can be captured in here. And if I go
Mm-hmm.
to the display address part here, it will give the information about the name and other address details. Here is the important or fun part. Until before S4, business partner concept was not mandatory. Customer and vendor are the were the objects used in ACC. The concept of business partner was not mandatory. In here, it is important that a plant has to be assigned with a customer or vendor, right? That's how the retail structure is. The vendor and customer master data has to be assigned, and if they are to be available, then it becomes mandatory that we also maintain the business partner. That's how the S4 system behaves. So it is also important that the plant is assigned with a specific business partner role. And if I go to the business partner information here, you will be able to see the business partner role that it is assigned with and its corresponding address and other informations. So if I open this role here, you should also learn a little about the BP, how the BP concepts work. Sai, because that's when you'll be able to relate to it. You can Google through a bit and understand, and if you can, if you're having any questions, you can let me know about it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's important that every customer object that is created in relevant to the plant should also be assigned with a specific sales org and distribution channel and information. So whenever you get a KN A1 entry, it is also mandatory that you should get the KN BB and KN B1 information. So in the address in the role of the BP role for customer specific for customer, you'll be able to see different informations. And this is the straightforward XD03 transaction, okay, where you will be able to see the relevant informations
Mm-hmm.
specific for the customers. So this is very important. And if I go to the sales and distribution tab here, you'll be able to see the sales and distribution channel assignment specific for that customer. I think they have not assigned anything in here, but it is also important. So that's about the business partner. In this we have assigned it only to the, I mean, someone whoever has created this has assigned it only to the customer object, so we are able to see only the customer object. If we also want to assign the business partner, so what we have to do is we have to go to the business partner here, and then we should assign a object which is it is in display now because I am in WB03 transaction. If I go to change mode here, I'll be able to assign the vendor object here. So if I have a vendor object similar to this, I'll be able to create this or assign this. So in this case, since it is not available, I'm going to create this one. Just for the sake of assigning it, I'm choosing a random role here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
When we actually create the stores in the system, we'll have to assign the right one. So I'm just assigning this role in here. If we go here, I'm just saying that create this organization, and then I'm saying that create this.
So the plant and business partner ID would be same, right?
It again depends on your config. We will go through those config information tomorrow. I will tell you in which place you will do the configuration, and you have the decision making power of how your numbers or namings are to be in the system. If you want your plant and its corresponding vendor and customer names are to be the same, you can also have it as the same entities. Or if you don't want, you can also ignore having the same names. So it
So we
depends
need,
on what your requirement
yeah,
is.
okay. So we need to change the role. If you want to create a customer, you have to create a separate role for the vendor. If it is for the customer, you have to create a separate role for the customer, right? When
Yes,
the
right. Yeah, yeah. I'll show you the configs tomorrow, and from there on, we will also see how it is being set now with the currently available setups. So this is the tab for the business partners and the material groups. If we go to the material groups are nothing but the merchandise categories. Material groups play a very major role in terms of any industry. Okay, not only specific for IS retail. Material groups are the ones which decides what kind of category your materials will fall in. Okay, if you see here, we can see the milk, fruits, vegetables, data storage are the material groups that are being created in the system. So when it comes to material groups, T023 is the table where you will be able to see the material groups information. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it depends on how you want to segregate your materials based on the industry that you're going to work. You will be deciding on the material groups information. If you see here, you'll be able to see just at the brink of seeing it. I'm able to see that they have done a very good segregation of the material groups: milk, fruits, vegetables, data storage, fuzzy drinks, beer, wine, whiskey, chewing gum. All of these could be your material groups, under which all the material groups whichever is available here, your store will be able to sell the materials which are specific to these material groups. For example, let's take a different women's jean is not available here. If that is a material group, if your organization is dealing with, if it is not assigned in here, it is not possible that this store can assign the or sell the material groups women's pants.
So we are not assigning the actual material here. We are assigning only the material group. So whatever the material belong to this material group will be available for sale, right?
Yes, yeah. It depends on what kind of assortments you're dealing with. If, for example, material women's pants are not available here, but if you have the opportunity to assign the assortment